Welcome to the Nerdstalgic podcast with your host, the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm. Nerdstalgic with the Ginger Bookworm.
Howdy beans, and welcome back to another exciting episode of the Nerdstalgic podcast with me, your host Luke. Hope you're doing well, hope you're all good, as per usual. Now, I've got to get all the boring stuff out the way first before I get into it. So, if you're listening to this on YouTube, don't forget to give me a like, subscribe, share it, comment, all that jazz really. All of it helps immensely. And if you're not already, please do go follow me on Twitter at nerdstalgic_pod to keep up to date with everything and anything that I'm doing, any games that I'm playing, movies watching, TV shows, or just random nerdy bits and pieces really. So yeah, don't forget to subscribe and don't forget to follow me on Twitter. Now, today, I'm going back to my old stomping grounds, my old roots, and I'm doing another movie tie-in game. So not last week, the week before, I did Lego The Hobbit, which, if you listen to it, you'll know that I was very disappointed with it, and that game was very much a cash grab. Basically, like, it was unfinished. They basically made the first two movies into Lego games, and that the idea was that they were going to release the third film as like a free DLC, as a free update. So the third film came out, but they never made a third game. So that game is incomplete, really. It's you can't. There's nothing really. There's no updates. There's no DLC you can pay for. Literally, you get the first two movies, and it hints and it ends where the second game ends, with no resolution, which I disagree with and I don't like, but it is what it is. But if you haven't listened to the episode yet, please do go back and give it a listen. If you listen to it on YouTube, it's the 2 episodes ago. If you're listening on Spotify, just scroll down. It's the one with the Lego, The Hobbit. Go check it out there. But today, I'm going to be talking about Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. Yes, that is what it's called. That's what's written on the box. They could have went King Kong, the video game, or even just Peter Jackson's King Kong. We know what it is. But then again, it was like 2005, 2006. They had to add in the whole, they would have condensed it if it came out nowadays, but, they would have had to, they just do all of it back then. So this was published by Ubisoft with conjunction, working with Wingnut Films. Wingnut Films is Peter Jackson's studio. They were the team that he worked on to do Lord of the Rings, what he did Immortal Engines, what else did he do when he did the Hobbit movies as well, King Kong. So any sort of Peter Jackson movie will be under the Wingnut Films production. As for... that was what I was going to do next. I was going to do something else. No, this is what I'm going to do next. I know it's a bit chaotic. I'm really excited. I'm really happy. Like, this game, I'm so excited to be talking about this game. It's a game I've been wanting to play for ages. I bought this Christmas time, around Christmas time, 2022. So again, not that long ago, technically. I'm now recording this in February. But I've been wanting to play this for ages. I remember playing this, watching my uncle play it when it first came out on the 360, and I remember being blown away by the graphics, about the world. Everything was just like incredible, because again, this was top of the line, Xbox 360 graphics. We weren't no longer playing with blocks anymore in terms of the original Xbox, even though the original Xbox, actually, a bit of facts for you, the original Xbox, the Xbox original, or as I would have called it, the Xbox One, but the original Xbox was actually the most powerfulest console at the time. It was more powerful and better than the PlayStation 2. It was better than the GameCube, obviously. It was just the most powerful, and that's mainly because it had more RAM. So it had more RAM, so it could it could take in data and process data a lot more, which means you could have better quality graphics and fidelity and that sort of stuff. But I don't know where I'm going. I don't know where that tangent went. I'm starting talking about the original Xbox. This is not the original Xbox. We're talking about King Kong. But I remember seeing it, and I remember blowing me away. And I remember playing it a bit. And again, being a young being, and one thing that I will go into as I go into the review of the game is that this game doesn't hold your hand. There is no hand holding. This is good old-fashioned traditional game design, and it's not really made for kids. This is, something for like an aged-old gamer, a gamer that was around before, um, you know, back in like the 90s, early 2000s sort of gamer, maybe even further back, because again, like I said, this game doesn't hold your hand at all. It just expects you to know, to listen, and just to remember, because like, again, there's no hand holding. But again, I'll get into all that as we go along. But I'm going to do my boxing complete expose sort of talk about, which is basically, if anybody that doesn't know, anybody who's new to the series, if you are new, please go back. This is like, I think maybe the 8th episode in this series that I've done. I don't really keep track of them, but I've done quite a few in the past. I've looked over other games. But for anybody that's new, basically I do a look back on all games that I have, like movie tie-in games that like I tied in with films or TV shows sometimes. So the likes of, I did, what did I do? I did quite a few actually. Like I did the Lego Harry Potter last week, and I'll be looking at other things. I looked at. I'll be looking at Up. I can be looking at Ratatouille, looking about like the Looney Tunes games, SpongeBob, maybe more Lego games in the future that are based off like really good IPs like Marvel and DC and that sort of thing. So expect more to come. But if you are new, getting back to it, thank you for coming into it. But this is the part of the episode where I do my boxing complete, which is basically I get the game in my hand and we just talk about what's on the game. Now, I know it's not really more of a visual thing. If it's a video, it'd be a lot easier to do. So I kind of talk about what's on the case and what my thoughts and feelings of it and that sort of thing. And we basically go from there. So, settle down. It's about to get nerdy, right? So, on the front of the box, we have King Kong looking absolutely vicious. Like, one thing I loved about this movie, like I love the Peter Jackson's movie. Percy Jackson, that's a book. That's nothing to do with Peter Jackson. A completely different genre. One's Greek and one's Australian, or New Zealand. I think Peter Jackson's New Zealand, Australia. I don't know. He's from around those parts. Anyway, I love the King Kong movie. I will admit, though, it is a 3 hour long film. It is a very, very long movie, but I enjoy it. I love it so much. It can't be beat in terms of how good it is, really. Like, I know they rebooted kind of King Kong recently with King Kong versus Godzilla, which, don't get me wrong, I love kaiju movies. I love monster movies. I love Godzilla. I was on Team King Kong because I'm more of a King Kong fan than I'm a Godzilla fan. Always have been. But this is, for me, the go-to King Kong movie. Kong Skull Island was good, but not as good as this. Hands down, this is the best version, if you ask my opinion. And maybe in the future I'll review the movie, because it could be fun to go back, because I haven't seen the film in a long time, so it'd be fun to go back and give it a watch. But today we're talking about the game. So on the front, again, picture of King Kong, Xbox 360. And the silly name, it goes Peter Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. I know it's really silly, but again, back in the day, there was no such thing as keeping it dense. It was all just, let's just put everything on the box. Then you got the 12 rating. It was made by Ubisoft. This is back when Ubisoft used to make tie-in games. EA did a few as well. But as time's gone, they just don't, like EA and Warner Brothers had a collaboration together to do the Harry Potter games. Ubisoft did a few movie tie-in games. For example, they did this one. And this is actually one of those rare examples where Ubisoft did something that was different, really. Did something that was, like, we all know Ubisoft now, they're very formulaic. All their games are very samey. They all feel the same. There's no originality to them. I played the recent Far Cry 6, and it's not terrible, but it's boring. You know what I mean? Like, it looks beautiful, yeah, but I'm like, I don't feel like I'm doing anything new here. I've played all the Far Cry games. I've played all the DLC. I played majority of all the Assassin's Creed, and again, they're all starting to converge into one. Like, I love Division, but I can see there's signs. Even the Division was starting to slip, and the Division 2 just felt like Division 1. And I played, all like Far Cry, and Far Cry has like Division elements in it, and they're all sort of like, it just feels lazy. And like, this feels back in the day when Ubisoft actually gave a damn, when they actually cared. You know what I mean? And I'd like to think Ubisoft would get back to that one day, but I digress. Maybe one day they will, but who knows really? On the back, we turn it around. I love this bit at the front. It goes, actual gameplay shown. It's a picture of King Kong in New York with a taxi cab in his hand, basically wreaking havoc. Play as a man, play as Kong, embark on an epic adventure created in collaboration with Academy Award winning director Peter Jackson and based on the Universal Pictures film Survive as Jack in a world crawling with predators and live the legend as Kong. And underneath, we have two in-game images. One where you play as Jack and you're facing down a T-Rex, and one you're playing as Kong where you're basically taking on Velociraptors, which I think they're Velociraptors. So as Jack, use weapons, traps, and your team your team wisely to survive in first-person shooter as Jack. Break jaws, slam enemies, and throw massive objects in Kong's third-person battles. And then it says King Kong the game, Universal Pictures, Wingnut Films, developed and published by Ubisoft, blah blah blah. And that's it really. But I like how they've put in-game footage. I've said this before. I like it when a company puts in-game footage. They don't just put concept art in. You actually get to see in-game what it actually looks like. And from playing the game, from what I can see on the back of the box, it is very accurate. But one thing I love about this game, which I talk about when I get onto the review, is just how you play as two different characters. Really, you get to play as Kong and you play as Jack, and those two different sort of gameplays and narratives are incredibly different. And it keeps the game fun. But like I said, this game doesn't hold your hand. It is hard, and it does get harder. But again, I'll get onto that bit in a minute. So open the box up. Inside, it's box complete. What I say by that, anybody who doesn't know, when I use the word box complete, I basically mean is that it comes with the disc and it comes with the manual. Especially when nowadays, when you go to CEX or car boots or charity shops, you can't always guarantee you're going to get the manual as well. And if you're somebody like me who likes to collect who likes to collect 360 games, old games, as well as collect movie tie-in games, which is basically my childhood in a nutshell, you really want a box of complete experience. You want the manual as well as the disc. So in the manual, sadly, it's all in black and white. You don't really get anything sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Anything sort of extravagant, like for example, the disc. The disc is beautiful. The disc is a lush green jungle, which, funny enough, the disc doesn't match the cover because the disc actually says Xbox 360 Classics, which is funny because for anybody who doesn't know, near to the middle to the end of Xbox 360's run, they did a run called the Classics, which was the original 360 games that had come out at the start of the generation. They would re-release them as classics, so go relive the original where the console started. And this was one of the first sort of games that came out when the console came out. So this was like a powerhouse. This was a game that was meant to not just show off the power of the console, but also the movie. So you'd think how beautiful the case is and the disc is that the manual would be, but it's not. It's all in black and white. It tells you about the different game menus, the extras. There's really great extras in this. There's loads of Weta artworks. Weta is part of the animation team that do all the special effects for Lord of the Rings. Anything that Wingnut does, anything that Peter Jackson does, I will get it right eventually. Everything that Peter Jackson does, any moves that he does, his company Weta and special effects will get involved. So there are bonus features from there. Bonuses must be unlocked to be accessible. To unlock them, you need to earn a set number of points when completing a level. If you have not earned enough points by the end of the game, you can always play the levels again to improve your score. To do this, select the play menu in the main menu. Then select the level you want to play again. The play menu also displays your score, which is calculated depending on the number of bullets fired, the number of enemies killed, etc., etc. Then you got the main characters. It's funny enough, this bit makes me giggle, right? So you got main characters. So you got Jack Driscoll, who is one of the main characters in the film. You got Ann Darrow, Kong, Mr. Haynes, Carl Denham, which is the cameraman Jack Black's character, and Jimmy. And then you get all the monsters. But what makes me laugh is the fact of you've got the animated like you in this game you never see Jack's face. Literally, it's like playing BioShock. You only ever see the character's hands when they're firing something or when they're shooting a gun. Really, that's all you really see. You don't see anything else. Okay, and that's basically this. Like, you don't see anything else but the hands, and it's funny because all the other characters have models. You get to see Anne's model, you get to see Kong, obviously, you get to see Heinz, Carl, blah, 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 blah. But when it goes to the main menu and it shows you all of the different character models and their description, when it says Jack Driscoll, it's just a picture of his hands holding the gun. And I find that really funny. Like, that's like, I don't know if some designer got lazy and before, let's instead of putting a picture of the main character, the actor from the film, let's just put in what you will see in the game, which is basically two hands and a gun. I don't know. It's funny. It's silly. Because it goes, "This is you. You have been hired by Carl Denham as a scriptwriter for his next film. You are a fairly well-known actor in New York, but on Skull Island, you have to prove yourself." And you have Anne Darrow. Anne Darrow is an unemployed actress. She hopes to be offered the leading role in Carl Denham's next film, but there are going to be a few changes to the script. Then you have Kong. At over 25 feet tall, he is the last of his kind, experiences staggering power as he survives against both man and creatures on the island. And then you have all the enemies. You got velociraptors, megapedes, giant crabs, V-Rexes, giant dragonflies, swamp creatures. You get different weapons. You get your pistol, shotguns, sniper rifles, machine guns, spears, levers, different ways. And when you're playing as Kong, you can run, jump, climb, swing from columns, pick up things, pick up and drop and hit things, dodge things, repel, knock off, catch or throw, jaw break, finish, throw finish, fury mode, and that's it. And then it just goes to terms and conditions. And actually on the back it goes, exclusive King Kong merchandise, just call. I'm not going to say the number wouldn't work anymore anyway, but it says call this number, answer the following questions for your chance to win. Calls charged for £1.50 per minute. Oh, remember when you did that? Remember when you used to get you have to make a phone call, and it was you had to phone them and they would charge you, and then you can get like different backgrounds for your little Nokia phone or little crappy little ringtones, and instead of having Centipede, you could have I think Crash Bandicoot at one stage had a game, and all silly little things. But the question is, what is the name of the island where King Kong lives? Is it Skeleton Island, Skull Island, or Kong Island? Oh well, they ended up taking that Kong Island quite seriously in the newest movies, didn't they? But that's the box and complete segment. And that's the introduction and all the other stuff. So now it's time to get on to the review. So let's get into it, shall we? Right, so on to the game review. So first of all, I'm going to start with gameplay. So as I mentioned, in this game you play as two different characters. You play as Jack for the first person shooting side of the game, which is more survival heavy, more sort of resource management, that sort of thing. And then some parts of the game you get to play as Kong, which is very much best way I can explain it, sort of arena sort of battles where you're either chasing down linear sort of corridors trying to catch up with Anne, or trying to save Anne, or trying to run away from creatures trying to get Anne. And when you're not doing that, you're fighting T-Rexes, fighting giant pterodactyl sort of creatures, that sort of thing. So the two gameplays are completely different. So I'm going to start off with Jack. So as I mentioned, as Jack, the game is more about survival. And this is where the game doesn't hold your hand. One thing that I love about this game is that the reason why I call it old-fashioned game design is because nowadays when you play a game, every game has to have a hub. Every game has to have a health bar. Every game has to an ammo count. Every game has to sort of visually tell you where to go, what to do, what your current health status is, X, Y, and Z, right? Every sort of game holds your hands and tells you X, Y, this is this, that's that, right? Now, don't get me wrong, I like those sort of games. I like a game which gives you the basics. Don't tell me everything, but just give me the basics. How much ammo have I got? How much in terms of health do I have? Those basic sort of things. Everything else you can take away. In this game, even though it's a very linear game, it's very sort of route one, go from A to B, or do this, do that, and then this opens and go here. There's no mini map. There's no sort of guide. There's nothing to tell you where to go, anything like that. It's basically the game starts. You're Jack. You crash kind of land on the shore, and from there you get told how to pick things up, how to use certain weapons, and then after that it's like now we've told you the base. Now we basically told you once. That's it. Remember, if you forget, you forget. It's simple as that. The game doesn't tell you again. Um, and one thing that I love about this game is, as again, as it tells you no hand holding, is that there's no ammo counter, there's no health bar. So you've got to sort of remember how many shots you have in your guns. For example, the pistol has about if I remember correctly, the pistol has about 6 to 7 shots, and then you've got to reload. And you've got to remember this because you've got to think of it as the best way I can explain it is that you have to imagine that if you actually are Jack and you're stuck on this island, in real life, sadly, there's no health bar, there's no mini map, there's no sort of virtuality thing telling you all these sort of health sort of situations about your life and pickups and that sort of thing. In real life, you see it is what you get. You see what you see. Unless you're on drugs and you hallucinate, and then you see all that kind of stuff. But normal people don't see that stuff, right? Um, so you have to imagine if you're in a survival situation, you have to remember how many bullets you have, how many sort of spare sort of ammo you have in your pockets or pouch or whatever. You've got to remember all this. You know what I mean? Because you're trying to survive. So with ammo being quite scarce, you've got to remember. Okay, so it's like 6 to 7 shots in my say pistol. I can use them all now to kill this enemy and get on with the next level, but I don't know what's going to be in the next level. There might be another enemy in the next level where I really need this gun. I need this shotgun. I need this machine gun. I need this sniper rifle. So I can use it all now or use it for when I need it, right? So it's that sort of situation. And so when you do run out of ammo, you get given spears, and most of the game you are running around with a spear, trying basically throwing spears at enemies. There's bones, there's like bits of bones piled around the area of dead animals that you can pick up, and you can pick up like sharpened bones, and you can use them as a spear, or you can spear and poke enemies if they get too close to kind of push them away. You can light the ends of your spear on fire. You can light the ends of the bone on fire to kind of clear away shrubbery. If you go inside a cave, to light the cave up, and you kind of use it as like a light source as well as like a sort of stabbing sort of weapon. But the stabbiness doesn't really work that well. The spear only really works, and the bone sort of spear only really works when you throw it like a javelin and it like impales an enemy. Apart from that, doesn't really work much as a poking device. But what I love about the game is the fact of when you do have ammo, like again, because it doesn't tell you how much ammo you have left, Jack will tell you. So if you go to, say for example, you fully reloaded, and you press the reload button again, and Jack will go, "I don't need to reload, I'm all right." So you'd be shooting around, and you'd be like, "Almost out." So when you're halfway out because Jack will go, "Almost out of ammo. I'm my last bullet." So you fire your last bullet, and then the game will reload. And then, say for example, you have, I don't know, you have 5 cartridges of ammo, right? And you go through 3 of those. So you've only got 2 left, okay? Jack will go, on my last 2 mags. So he will tell you, you've got to be aware, you've got to listen to your surroundings. Jack will tell you, on my last 2 mags. So now you know, okay, there's 2 mags left. So I've got this one in the gun, and I've got 2 left on reserve. So if I run out, that's it. And he's going to tell you, last mag, last bullet, gone. Then the gun's gone. You might be able to find ammo if you're lucky, but the game tells you. Like, it doesn't hold your hand, but it gives you subtle nods of like Jack will tell you if you're running out of ammo. Jack will tell you if he's not feeling too good. For example, like you don't need a health bar because most animals, especially the bigger animals, if they hit you at least 2 to 3 times, the smaller animals they can hit you 2 times, and then the screen will go red, the music will start going really loud and sort of really sort of daunting, and then your next hit, Jack kind of like falls over and passes out really. But the bigger animals, it's like one depends on where they get you. If they bite you, if they stand on you, it's like instant kill. But very much the Jack will tell you, Jack will start breathing quite heavily, panting, the screen will go yellow, and then as he starts to get his breathing back, the screen will clear and you'll be able to see again. But again, like I said, this game's not easy. there's no hold your hand. You've got to conserve ammo. You've got to be smart. You've got to constantly be listening to where the creatures are around you, where how much ammo you have left, if you have any ammo at all. Okay, I have no ammo. I'm stuck. Are there any spears I can pick up, because I'm going to really need the spear right now, because there's a giant T-Rex running at me and I'm going to need to launch it at the T-Rex's head so that I can quickly hide away, find another spear, or hopefully he rips that spear out of him and I can go pick it up later. You know what I mean? Like, you've constantly got to be thinking about survival. You're constantly on the brink of, like, at any moment I could die. I don't know how much ammo I have left. I've got to conserve what I have. You know, you've got to be smart. It's very survivalistic. Like I said, this game doesn't hold your hand, and as you go through each level, the difficulty ramps up and it gets harder and harder, more tedious, more survivalistic, and eventually, like, I'll be honest with you, and I should have said this at the beginning, I haven't completed this game. Usually when I do a game review, I tend to like to finish the game completely. One thing I found with this game is that, like I said, it gets harder, it gets quite frustrating, and I got to a part where I tried it a few times, and as you know me, I said fuck it and turned it off. I just couldn't do it anymore. But I got as far where I played as Kong for a few times, as well as playing through Jack through the most of it. So I felt like I got the best part of the experience in terms of playing it. And then I went onto YouTube and I sat and watched a playthrough of the levels that I missed, and see where the game sort of goes after that. Again, the game very much follows the movie in terms of the narrative, which I will get on in a minute. But when you're playing as King Kong, the game is completely different. The game is actually a lot more fun and a lot more fluid and interesting when you play as Kong, because when you play as Jack, like I said, the game gets harder, it gets more tedious, as it would do if you was in a real survival situation. I mean, this is why I said this game is a traditional gamer's experience, because games back in the day didn't hold your hand. A game would tell you what to do if you were lucky. Most games didn't tell you what to do, but if you were lucky, a game would tell you what to do, and then it would tell you once, and that's it. You know, you need to go on and just play the game, and if you complete it, great. If you don't, well, you know, maybe this isn't the game for you. But that's how old-fashioned this game is in terms of survival. Like, it really is a survival situation. You know, you've got to conserve everything, and I love that side of playing as Jack. Whereas King Kong, as you would imagine, is Kong. You know what I mean? He is the most dangerous creature, beast in the whole of this island. All the animals fear him. He is the alpha and omega, right? So you'd imagine playing as him would be fun, and it is. And remember, you're an ape. You know, so you're swinging from trees to trees, you're climbing up walls, you're jumping off ledges, you're landing on top of T-Rexes, you're grabbing them, you're ripping like, you literally grab the top of the jaw, like in the movie. Kong puts his hand inside the mouth, top of the jaw, bottom of the jaw, and you lift it, and you're breaking jaws, and you're hitting animals, and you have this fury mode where you do more damage, where Kong beats his chest like that, and then just goes ham and everything. And it's fun, and it's what you'd imagine playing a giant ape to be like, you know, swinging from trees to trees, saving Anne. Like, there are moments where, like, I'll be honest, it gets kind of annoying, because there are moments where, like in the movie, where Anne sort of is getting attacked by the T-Rexes, and Kong has to find a way to kind of have Anne insane in his left hand while he's beating a T-Rex with his right hand, while he's also trying to make sure that nothing's trying to sneak up on him from his left to try and eat, you know, Anne. So it is very much the fact that there are times where you have to put Anne down quickly, you know, give the old 1-2, 1-2, then run back, pick Anne up, move Anne, put Anne down in a different direction, because there's enemies coming from that direction, so you now got to go and beat them up. And it does get a bit tedious, I will admit, but it's fun. It's exactly what you'd imagine to play as Kong would be, and it's those moments of, like, now I've had my fun, I've got to go back as playing as Jack, and you're like, okay, now I've kind of got to get back in the mindset. I'm a survivalist. I'm trying to survive. Like, there's monsters everywhere. I haven't got no ammo. I've got a wooden spear. You know, I've got to be a bit more sort of come down back to the level now. Like, I've got to relax. I've got to really focus. And again, I might not have completed the game, but I tried myself to constantly keep in that mindset of, like, you know, survival, of like a bit of excitement, bit of like old-fashioned arcadey gameplay as a giant ape. And now I'm going to go be back down, and I'm in survivalist mode, and I'm going to try and, like, proper Bear Grylls, try to focus my energy. You know what I mean? So very much the two different gameplays work really well in tandem, exactly how you would imagine it. You know what I mean? Jack is not a survivalist. He's a writer. He's a screenplay writer. He's an actor. He's not, you know, a James Bond. He's not a Indiana Jones. He's not a survivalist. You know, so you've got to imagine that you are a fish out of water in experience. You've got to survive. Where you're playing as Kong, you are the beast, the alpha and omega. You know what I mean? So the gameplay works fantastically, and it works really, really well. Yes, it's a bit tedious at times, but it's fun for what I got to play. Sadly, I didn't get to complete it. I never got to go to New York and play as Kong, wrecking stuff in New York, and getting on top of the Empire State Building and taking out the airplanes that come on in. But either way, you know, I enjoyed for the experience of gameplay that I got. As I mentioned, the narrative follows very much along with the film. Few things here or there and change because again they have to change certain things because of gameplay. So those moments where you get jump cuts between Kong and Jack, those moments where like Jack goes from one end of the island to the next end of the island in like a flash of the screen. Obviously, for movies, they have to do that to kind of keep the pacing up. Whereas in games, you have the luxury to actually sit and see what happens in between those sort of moments. So again, it follows on very much the film. There are shots at the beginning of beginning of the game from the movie, which are not very well compressed. They're very sort of tinny and very sort of grainy sort of footage. You'd think the quality would be a bit better. Granted, I know they're putting it into a video game, but you're taking it shot from the film, so you think it'd be a bit better quality. But again, I digress. It is what it is. It's only for the first part it's only at the beginning of the movie anyway to really set the scene, if anything, of what's going to happen and where you're going next. If you haven't played the game, haven't watched the film, that is, at least you know why you're there and what's going on and all that jazz. As for the characters, like I said, you play as Jack throughout the game. You get to play as Kong as well. Yeah, there's Anne, and then you also get the game says on the back, which I think is a lie. It says here, it goes, use your team wisely to survive in first person survival as Jack, right? Use your team wisely. I will say this now, the AI is not bad, but the AI does not good. And the reason the AI is not good is because it doesn't do anything. All the AI really does, right, is, like, don't get me wrong, they throw spears, don't get me wrong, the characters will all carry spears, and sometimes, if you're lucky, they might carry a gun. But that gun doesn't do anything. That gun is like a BB gun. Like, they're firing it, but nothing's happening. It's up to me, the player, to kill the monster, to kill the T-Rex, to kill the Velociraptor, to kill the giant centipede. It's up to me to do that. They're just there for background. Oh, look, they're getting involved. They don't do nothing. Right, I saw Jack Black's character, Carl, throw 2 spears, right, and they hit, didn't do nothing. Now, when I hit a T-Rex with a spear, you know, it shudders, it moves, it kind of slows down, so it gives me time to run away. Where when Jack and that do it, they hit and they don't do nothing, and it just proves the fact of they're just there as like a background, like kind of like a story sort of thing. They're just there, they don't do anything, and most of the time, which is the annoying part, is the fact of because they don't do anything, they don't help. So a lot of the time, when you're trying to do a puzzle or when you're trying to open up a gate, they'll be like, "Help me, Jack, help me!" And you turn around and they're in like the clutches of a T-Rex that's on top of them, or a giant centipede has got them wrapped up in its like little arm tentacle things. You know what I mean? It's like then I have to go off, I have to stab and poke this giant centipede, or I have to throw a spear at it. Just to kind of get off, and that's all for the game is help me, Jack, help me. Oh, Jesus Christ. So you have to run back, and if you don't do it, you fail the level. You got to do it all over again. You know, so they're a hindrance, these characters. Okay, very much hindrance. Now again, I get it. You know, the whole point of the game is very much of your survivalist, blah blah blah. But because the AI, again, it's not bad. Like the AI, they're there and they don't get stuck on ledges, and there's no sort of real sort of there's nothing wrong with them. It's just they're very simple. You know, all they really know how to do proficiently is open doors. So like we have doors, and you'll find these like little hinges and levers that around the level, and you can use them to open up passageways to the next level. And they're really helpful because when you actually go on to open the door, usually they're 2 people. The character will, you know, the NPCs will pick up the levers and they will spin them around with you to open up the gates. They are helpful in that aspect, but in terms of actually being helpful, in other sort of combat or survival, no help at all. Um, so the characters are great, but they don't do anything. That you do all the work. You are Jack, the ultimate Indiana Jones Bear Grylls survivalist, and you have to save everybody, and it's annoying. Um, but it is what it is. These characters just want to get themselves kidnapped. And like they just want to get themselves eaten, basically. It's as simple as that. But you do get you sometimes you get like Carl and you'll get Mr. Haynes, or you'll get Jimmy. They'll come in and help you. But again, they don't really do much, really. They're just there. As for the world and level design, obviously the world and level design is beautiful. I'm playing it on the Xbox Series X, so it's Auto HDR, so high dynamic range has been put into it, and again, it's running on a better engine, so it's running at 60 frames. So the game looks gorgeous, but from what I can remember, the game looked gorgeous really on the Xbox 360. Now, obviously, some of the facial models are not that great, and there are a few things here and there where it's a bit like you can tell it's like beginning of the 360 era. Um, but the world building, like the level design and the way the world looks and your surroundings is all pretty gorgeous. Like I said, I'm playing it on the next gen sort of console, so everything's been up-resed. Everything just looks a bit more sort of glamorous, a bit more sort of sparkly, a bit nicer. But again, you are in a jungle. You're constantly surrounded by ruins. The creatures designs were amazing. They look quite scary at times, really, really quite sort of creepy. Like they actually look really, especially like the centipedes, like they just crawl out the walls, and like the AI on the monsters and the creatures are really well done as well. Like there are moments where you walk into a cave and you hear like scuttering sort of noises, and you turn around and you just see a giant centipede like crawl out of a hole in the ceiling down the wall, sort of raise up its head and its tentacles, and would just like fly at you, and it's quite scary. You know what I mean? It's quite creepy. So then you're gonna have to try and react as fast as possible to like poke it with your giant spear. Um, so it's very well done. The very level design's very done. Each level's very done. Again, even though it's a very linear game, it's still one of those games where um, each level is really well crafted, well done. And again, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. This is back when Ubisoft actually tried. Generally you can tell that not everything in this game is perfect, but when this game works, it works. When you're playing as Kong, it works. When you're doing it, even though the game's tedious, and I know I keep saying it's tedious because it is tedious. I want to make sure that you get that. Like, it's tedious for a reason because you are trying to survive in this situation. But even when it's tedious, it's still fun. It's still interesting. Yes, I might have, shouted at this game and told it to F off and uninstalled it and not completed it. But even that, like, I still had a great time. I still enjoyed it. I really, really did. And it was mainly because like the gameplay and the levels were just sucking me in. Like, I love this movie anyway, but to kind of play a King Kong sort of game where I get to play as King Kong and I get to play as sort of the hero character at the same time and have the genres change constantly. It was just a really fun experience, and that sort of brings me on to the overall ending, really, of my overall thoughts and feelings. So overall, I love this game. I do. It's really fun. It's really interesting. Like I said, the two gameplays, they vary enough where it keeps it fun, keeps it fresh. You can see how different each character is. When you play as Jack, like, you are trying to survive. When you play as King Kong, you are King Kong. There's no need to struggle. There's no longer need to conserve anything. It's literally like go at it and destroy things. And I think the reason behind that is the way I like to see it is that the King Kong levels are not just there as a gameplay sort of thing, but they're also as like a breather, kind of like a reward for doing a hard day's work. It's the fact of you toil and you struggle through a lot of hard levels playing as Jack, getting quite stressed, getting quite tedious sort of moments. And here you go, you did well, you did pretty good. So we're going to give you a treat, and we're going to let you play as Kong. And the moments as Kongs are really, really fun. It gives you time to relax, to chill out, just to kind of bash heads, rip skulls open, crawl on walls, swing off columns, swing off tree branches, go full Tarzan. Absolutely amazing, fantastic. I love it. You know what I mean? And those moments of like, you had your fun now, you love it, you like it. All right, now it's back to work. You know what I mean? So it's a reward. You know you're going to get to play as Kong again, so you keep pushing through. You keep trying again. You keep getting to the moments. And even though, again, I know I didn't complete it and the game did defeat me. In all fairness, I've got a lot of games I want to review, a lot of newer games as well as these movie tie-in games. So I don't really have the time to really sit and get it complete. But I will do later on. I promise I will get around to complete this game. Not just that, in terms of achievements, you get 100 gamer score for every single achievement in this game, and so it's a very easy 1,000 gamer score. Well, I say easy. It is easy if you have the time and you have the patience to really sit down with this game to get the 1,000 gamer score. Um, and one day I will. I got about 200 gamer score. So I only got 2 achievements, but I got quite far into the game. But I will eventually, I will get around to finishing it. I do promise you beans that. But my overall, like, if I had to give this game a score, I would say I'd give it an out of 10. Um, Recommend it, play it, complete it if you can. The game sells. It's not really a collectible. Like the edition I got, I think it was only £3 from CEX, and that was because the cover was broken. The sleeve cover, for some unknown reason, it's just coming off at one side, and the disc inside is different. It's not, because again, for collectors they want complete in box. For me, I didn't mind that the game was a classics game and wasn't the original sort of game that would have came with the game originally. So for me, it was a bit cheaper. But this game usually goes for about £8, 10 at most. So if you're lucky, you might be able to find it a bit cheaper. But that's how much it goes for on eBay. And if you can find a car boot or charity store, you might be able to find it for a lot cheaper than that. But I recommend it if you can find a copy and you've got an Xbox One or Xbox Series X. Put it in, give it a go. You will not be disappointed. Again, like I said, it's completely different. It's not what you expect. This game won't hold your hand, but you will find enjoyment out of it, especially if you have the time to sit and be patient and to actually try to survive, really. And that's kind of the point of the game. Is the whole point is just trying to survive as Jack. And if you can do that, you'll get rewarded with bonus features and bits of art and concept art and stuff like that. And you get to play as Kong for a few minutes. You know what I mean? So I would say it's worth it if you hold out. But yeah, so that's my review of Percy Jackson's King Kong, the official game of the movie. I hope you all enjoyed it. Hope you all liked it. So I'm going to go off into the end now to wrap things up, and I will catch you all in a minute. And here we are at the end. For you beans that are still here, thank you very much for sticking around. For those beans that left, well, it's all good. But this is the end of the episode. This is the part where I tend to plug all the Twitter and all the boring stuff. But, you know, if you follow me on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod, let me know what you thought. Did you like this review? Did you not like it? Did you like the King Kong movie? Are you not a fan of the King Kong movie? Have you played the games? Did you play it on the 360? Did you play it on Xbox? Did you play it on PC? All that jazz, let me know on Twitter at Nerdstalgic_pod. And also don't forget to follow me on Spotify. Also don't forget to follow on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music Podcasts. I'm also on Audible. I'm on YouTube, as I mentioned at the beginning. Go give me a subscribe there if you haven't already. I'm currently at 60 subscribers, which is a lot for me, considering that I am just a podcast channel. And I don't do any videos. So to get 60 people regularly sort of subscribed and listening is a lot. So thank you very, very much if you're one of the 60. Also, if you listen to this on Spotify, don't forget to give me a star rating, which is very much like YouTube, where you give somebody a like and you share their account. It's very much like that. Underneath my account on Spotify, there'll be stars. Click on that. It'll give you the option between 1 star and 5 star. 5 stars, best thing you've heard in your life. You know, you love my podcast so much that like your ears are literally raining rainbows. It's that beautiful. Or 1 star, your ears are bleeding and you don't want to listen anymore. Like, I'll put you off podcast for life. Whatever you feel like is fair. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stars. It all really goes to a good cause. It means a lot to me. And obviously, the more people that like it, the higher up on the Spotify algorithm that I go, and the more people that will see my show, and then more listeners and downloads, and then hopefully sponsors and things like that. So yeah, so that's all the boring stuff out the way. Very much grateful for you for listening. You've been listening to me, Luke, your host of the Nerdstalgic podcast. I am so grateful for you to be here. I know this episode has been a very chaotic one. I'm very, very excited, and not just to be talking about this game, to reviewing it, but also I'm excited because the next game that I'm going to be looking at will be GoldenEye on the Xbox. Technically, well, originally it came out on the Nintendo 64, but I've never played it before. And it's currently on Game Pass, and you can play it on the Xbox. Kind of originally, as it was, came out years and years ago before I was born. So I really look forward to giving this sort of classic a go and reviewing it. So that'll be the next one to listen to. So for all you beans that stayed till the end, you now know what's coming next. And for those that didn't, well, it's going to be a surprise for them. But that's why I've been so anxious. That's why I've been so excited, because I can't do a game review or a movie review until I've reviewed the prior one. So I can't start anything new until then. So I'm glad it's over and that I can move on, and we're going to be able to talk about James Bond next. So I'm really, really excited. So much fun. Can't wait. And I'll see you folks in the next one. So as always, thank you for listening to the Nerdstalgic podcast. I've been your host, Luke, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye bye.